RetroFighters Jab Controller on this episode of Reviews by This Guy. Welcome back to another episode of Reviews by This Guy, and on this episode we're taking a look at the RetroFighters Jab Controller, a modern designed NES controller that works on both your original console and PC. Now when you first take a look at the controller, it looks amazing. When I first seen it on ThinkGeek, I wanted it, but unfortunately they were sold out, so where did I go? Naturally, Amazon, and Amazon came to the rescue. Now it has a modern design. It has a light gray and red and black color scheme. It has a very retro design. The controller is modernized, so it feels very comfortable in the hand. It's made of a hard plastic. It's very well constructed. It has two analog sticks, a D-pad. It has a turbo and clear button, which I'm still to this day not entirely sure what they're used for. Maybe you can map them for something else. You have a start and select. You have two action buttons. Why they didn't go with 4 action buttons to make this controller a little more versatile is beyond me. You have two bumpers and 2 triggers, and on the end of the wire you have an original Nintendo connector and a USB. Now the 2 analog sticks mirror the D-pad, and the bumper and trigger buttons mirror the action A and B buttons when connected to a Nintendo clone or an original Nintendo. At first I wasn't entirely sure why they added all these buttons. I thought it would be useless. But turns out when you do plug this into a PC and you decide to play games on an emulator, you can map these other buttons for other things, such as the Super Nintendo emulator, which has 4 action buttons. The 2 bumper buttons up top, you can map them to the X and the Y that are not currently on this controller. I also was able to map the extra buttons to the Sega Saturn or Dreamcast controller inside of the emulator. But because I could not get the emulator to load games, I don't know why it wasn't working. I was not able to actually test this during gameplay. But as far as on the Res Plus, which if you didn't see the unboxing or the review on the Res Plus, I will leave a link to both of those in the description down below. This controller functioned absolutely fine. Everything worked. Like I said, these analog sticks mirrored the D-pad, and these trigger and bumper buttons up here mirrored the action A and B buttons. But the controller performed very well. I didn't see any noticeable lag. It was a great alternative to the original controller. It was way more comfortable than that squared off design, even though we've all grown to love that. And on the PC side, this did function good as well. I was able to map the buttons in the NES emulator, and the controller worked perfectly fine during gameplay. I was also able to map the buttons in the Super Nintendo emulator, and it worked great on most games, but unfortunately when it came to fighting games, I could only get the controller to jump up and not to the sides. Now there seemed like there were some extra buttons to map, but for some odd reason it wouldn't map. If you're looking for a great alternative to the original squared off NES controller, this is a great choice. I highly recommend it. I just wish they would have added 2 other action buttons in X and Y, which would have made this controller more versatile. Now, RetroFighters is working on an N64 version of this controller, which I think is amazing. The controller looks great. It looks like it's gonna function very well, and visually it looks like it makes sense. They do have a Kickstarter. I can't wait until the controller's released, but I will leave a link to that Kickstarter in the description down below. If you have any questions on the RetroFighters Jab Controller, please leave them in the comments down below. I'll get to them as soon as possible. As always, thank you for watching, and please hit that like and subscribe button if you're interested to see more from the Deem channel.